First off, I love the show so much. It's so clever. Y'all are so great in it. So congratulations. First off, Judy, the climate was very different, especially for women when Bree was last on set.
That climate. Yeah.
Yeah, you remember that one? How will we see Bree navigate a space that's safer now for women in the industry, but also needs more work?
I don't think, actually, like Steve and I talked a lot about this when we were kind of developing the character and stuff before we started shooting, because we talked about what to do with Bree in that regard and how she's been living kind of off the grid in this country. And I always thought it would be really funny if she just had no idea that these things had happened. And almost if she was kind of like doing it to people without knowing it. But that hasn't really come up yet. I mean, I think that with Bree, she's so self-absorbed, unlike me, that I just handed you that. But she's really just like treading water, trying so hard to just keep this thing moving, stay here, make it work because she needs this so badly. Mm-hmm. But it is a really interesting thing to talk about. And going into a second season, fingers crossed, I hope that we do explore some of those things, because I think it would be a good idea. I mean, they do explore that in the writer's room, I believe, but like more with our characters, the actors on the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's really fascinating. It's Johnny, you've worked in so many different arenas of comedy. I like to say. How has your definition of comedy changed over the years? And how does this series kind of comment on comedy not needing to fit in one box as a genre?
Well, I don't know. It's like, I always defined it, if it makes you laugh, it's comedy. So there's different styles, but at the end of the day in comedy, that's all you're going for. Drama, it's different, but there's a little litmus test called the laugh, and
which is interesting because in the first episode there's that great line where he says, not your character, but how it's so funny, but you won't laugh once, or something like that.
Oh, right. You get those people where you're like, tell them something, they're like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah, but you're not laughing. So
was it funny? Yeah. Speaking of funny, how funny is the writer's room on this show?
Oh my God.
It's so good.
I love when we're in the writer's room. Rose Abdu as Selma just says terrible things, and it just makes me laugh every time.
Yeah, it's really great. I think the whole world's going to fall in love with this show, but it's an extra kind of wink for all of us in the industry as well, which is really fun. A lot of commentary going on, but also a lot of laughs along the way. So thank you. I'm excited for the world to see it. Reboot.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I love the series so much. I think it's going, thousands of people around the world are going to love it, but I also think it's such a wink to industry folk, which has been very fun to watch. Elaine says in episode 2, I believe, that when she was a kid, watching the sitcoms that were on TV was like watching families that always seemed happier than hers. So my question to both of you is, why is it important to see the light and also the dark on screen, even in comedy?
Great question.
Thank you.
I think storytelling is just so important in general in the world. It's such an important medium. And I think it's important that when we go to tell stories, we're very conscious of that, because it does have a huge impact. I learned a lot of lessons growing up watching TV shows that maybe I didn't learn from other people. And it is really important, especially when it's for families or young people, especially. It's important to make sure that we're very conscious of the kinds of stories we tell and who we tell them with, and making sure that we're implementing the lessons that we want to see in the rest of the world.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. What about you, Krista?
I think human beings all have hearts and we all feel immensely. And it is really easy to feel alone, especially during this time of COVID. And and so much political division. I think to have a show that expresses that we're not all glossy, everything isn't just happy all the time, is really important, because it allows people to feel. It allows people to not be okay. It allows people to sit in a place of not great, and then therefore can have empathy for other people when they're not great. And I think that is really important.
Absolutely. Also beautifully said. And I thought that line was a really powerful one. I was like, damn, yes. I always like to ask what artists have, learned about themselves while making a project. I'd love to hear if this was, and I'm sure it was, a reflective experience for the both of you, since y'all have been working on TV sets for a minute. Can you speak about that?
Yes, I think I myself grew a lot with Elaine. This is actually the very first time I'm playing an adult. And so Elaine being kind of new to set, I also came to set with a different kind of energy and a different kind of perspective, to kind of, I didn't have the same people like reaching out and holding my hand and the wings. So it was something I learned about not having to do everything I should do. Elaine also learned that she didn't have to do exactly what her dad told her to do at Stanford. She could live a very successful life doing what she loved. And that made me really reflect on even what success means, and what societal norms are telling me success is. And I do think there's a lot more to just career. And both I and Elaine are learning that.
Oh, yep, absolutely. It's definitely a journey. I'm still learning that myself. What about you, Calum?
I have a lot of I've always had a lot of empathy for people within the industry, especially people that start when they're very young, because it is a very tricky journey. And that empathy really grew. I grew up in this industry, and I spent a lot of time preparing for this role by reflecting and journaling my own experiences. And even though my experiences weren't like Zach's, I know a lot of people that had similar experiences to Zach. And it was really a wonderful opportunity to reflect on my life and reflect on my childhood. And also knowing when you're young, trying to be an adult in a work environment and trying too hard and feeling like you don't quite fit in is something that I experienced a lot of. Sometimes you're the only kid on set with a bunch of adults. And it is odd when your coworker is 12. So it does make sense that it does create an odd environment. And everyone I worked with was always so generous and so graceful. But it also helped me to forgive younger Calum for trying so hard and feeling embarrassed when he tried too hard to be a grown-up. Like, I remember coming to set when I was 12 with like a coffee cup, even though I didn't drink coffee. I just wanted to have a coffee cup to be like, oh, it's cup of Joe, we're at work. I was trying to I had like a one of those cases that had a briefcase on. I would bring that because I thought that would look more like an adult. And but I always felt so embarrassed because it did the opposite. So it was a chance for me to kind of forgive my younger self.
Oh, I'm so glad that you got that chance. And thank you for sharing. And thanks for being so open and honest with me today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for asking such great questions. Those were, I feel like we just went through a therapy session.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.